I do think it's the worst crisis in living memory. I really feel there's collateral damage being done to the monarchy that they've been too slow to realise. I think the statement should have come from King Charles himself, that he'd taken decisive action. He should have actually taken the credit for this. I mean, the only way I think he can go is to voluntarily go. The optics look terrible for a non-working royal in a 30-room mansion.
Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of a Right Royal podcast with me, Andrea.
And me, Emily.
The past few days have been dominated by headlines about Prince Andrew, whose already troubled situation has gone from bad to worse.
Yes, the prince formerly known as the Duke of York has given up the use of his titles and royal honours and is firmly off the guest list for Christmas at Sandringham.
The news has also impacted his former wife, Sarah Ferguson, who will no longer use her courtesy title of Duchess of York.
But this story goes way beyond the loss of a few titles. It's about the scandal that has continued to swirl around Andrew for decades and the damage it has done and threatens to do to the wider royal family. So today, in a special audio-only episode, we're taking a deep dive into the latest developments and what this all means for the King, Prince William, the institution, and of course, Andrew's two daughters.
We're delighted to be joined by a very well-informed guest, the author Andrew Loney, whose best-selling book entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York tells the story of Prince Andrew's fall from grace. But before we welcome him, let's get up to speed with what's happened in the last few days.
Let's do it.
Well, Emily, we didn't think we'd be back in the studio so soon.
Not quite this quickly. No, when we signed off the other day, look, I think we knew that this was brewing, didn't we? There had been so many headlines in the past week about Prince Andrew. But even so, the news when it came on Friday evening was quite a surprise.
Yeah.
Certainly not how I plan to spend my Friday night. I don't know about you.
Definitely not. I think it developed very, very quickly.
It did. And I think you need to look really at what came up last week for the clues as to why this has happened now. And there's a few things we need to look at. One is that obviously Prince Andrew has been mired in this Jeffrey Epstein scandal now for about 2 decades. You know, it goes back to photographs of him with Epstein in Central Park in 2011, which, you know, was after he had been convicted of serious sex offences. And this has rumbled on, but it's come to a head again now because primarily of an email that has been leaked in which Prince Andrew reaches out to Epstein long after he says he ended their friendship and tells him, "We are all in this together." That's been incredibly damning, and obviously the palace has moved quite quickly. But this also comes in the context of another story. Andrew's had at least 3 meetings with a senior Chinese official who's now at the heart of a Chinese spying case in the middle of government here. And of course, we have the imminent publication of Virginia Giuffre's posthumous memoir. And this is the woman who has made these allegations against Andrew for many years, that she had sex with him on 3 occasions after being trafficked for that purpose by Jeffrey Epstein. So it's a really murky story all around, and one that clearly the palace decided needed a firm line drawn under it.
Well, you say the palace acted quickly, but they never seem to do enough. You know, people always think that enough has not been done, and even after Friday, they still think it's not enough because he can still, you know, he still has his princely title. He still has a 30-room mansion in Windsor.
Well, let's talk about what's actually happened. So Andrew released a statement via Buckingham Palace, which is interesting in itself because for many years, they've made clear that they don't represent him. Yeah. He has released a statement saying that he will no longer use his titles, that is the Duke of York, and his membership of the Order of the Garter, the most senior order of chivalry in Britain. So these are, on the face of it, fairly significant losses for somebody who held the title of Duke of York, for example, for nearly 40 years now. But it doesn't hugely move the situation on from where we were before. You know, he stepped back from his public life in 2019 following the disastrous Newsnight interview. In 2022, he was stripped of his remaining military patronages when his civil case was settled with Virginia Giuffre. And now
Yeah.
they're taking more sanctions. But as you say, it's been fairly piecemeal throughout. And certainly there are calls for more action to be taken.
The fact is he still has the title. He just can't use it. And we know from the past that doesn't always work well.
No, we don't know how he, asked people to address him in private, for example.
Yeah.
So, at the moment, these titles still exist. They are still his, but they are in abeyance. So he's no longer going to use them. But I mean, how do you police that in the private situation? So we're left with a situation where there are still options available to the royal family. But I think what's really interesting in this is that there has been a lot of news coming out over the weekend as to how this came about. And we know that Prince William has for a long time wanted to take a firmer line with his uncle. Just a few weeks ago, we were talking about their interaction on the steps of Westminster Cathedral after the Duchess of Kent's funeral. And William was so clearly uncomfortable in his uncle's presence. He's acutely aware of the optics and also acutely aware of public opinion and, the fact that the real victims in this situation are the survivors of sexual abuse. He absolutely does want to distance himself from Andrew and believes that the monarchy should be distancing itself from Andrew. On the other hand, we've had King Charles, who in recent years sort of brought his brother back in from the cold. He began to join the family again at public events, private, but, he was seen at Easter, for example, and at Christmas.
And he brought back Sarah Ferguson too. Notably, earlier this year, actually, she attended a reception at Buckingham Palace for cancer charities that the King was hosting. And obviously they had that diagnosis in common. Yeah.
Now, it's interesting, isn't it? Because under late Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, there was a much stricter line with Sarah Ferguson. She was banned from spending time with the family. Certainly while Prince Philip was there, he'd never forgiven her for the scandals around the end of their marriage.
Toegate.
Exactly. And so there had been this apparent softening. And I think that may have sent out mixed signals. Now, from people I've spoken to, some palace insiders are saying, look, actually, the truth is more that the King and William are more closely aligned on this than is obvious. Yeah. And absolutely both of them, need to put the preservation of the institution up there, along with, obviously, their concern for the victims in all this. But certainly there are lots of voices out there saying that there is more that could be done. It's worth just pointing out at this moment that Prince Andrew, in his statement, says, as I've said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. Now, there's so much to say on this, and I'm very glad that we've brought in
one of those voices you talk about, actually.
Well, Andrew has obviously spent around 4 years writing and researching his book, which has been incredibly timely. And so I think we should bring him in.
Let's bring him in
and find out a bit more about what he knows. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us in what's been an incredibly busy week for you. We're very excited to have you on the podcast. How have you found the last few days?
Well, I mean, it's very exciting, when one feels that some of the things that you've been calling for in a book begin to happen, and their developments. And clearly it's been very good for book sales, but it has been pretty exhausting. I've been pretty much getting up at 5 and either talking to people or writing articles till the small hours. But, this is exciting. It's either feast or famine. And at the moment, we have this extraordinary feast of new revelations almost every day, taking the story forward, confirming much of the stuff that I found in my own book, unknowingly a lot of stuff that was taken out because people didn't believe it, and it's now been proven to be true.
Andrew, would you say this is the gravest royal crisis ever? Obviously, we've had the abdication of Edward VIII. Is it worse than Annus Horribilis, Megxit? What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's as bad as the abdication, but I do think it's the worst crisis in living memory. I really feel there's collateral damage being done to the monarchy, that they've been too slow to realise actually what's going on. And they really need to get ahead of this news agenda rather than to play catch-up. But yes, I mean, King Charles is being accused of being weak. I don't think anyone has bought the explanation. That wasn't a decision really except of William. I think the feeling is that, this putting titles into abeyance is not really going to carry any weight with the public. They want to see Andrew stripped of all his honours and titles, properly stripped, so he is an ordinary citizen. They want to see him out of Royal Lodge. And I think they want to see that if investigations do take place, as I hope they do, that they are properly conducted.
Now, just before you joined us, Andrew, we took a dive back through what happened over the course of last week. And there were three things really that triggered this extraordinary statement on Friday night, weren't there? There's the email that proved that he had not been honest in his account of when his friendship with Epstein ended. There is his connection to a senior Chinese official at the heart of the spying scandal. And then, of course, the imminent publication of Virginia Giuffre's posthumous memoir. But it's not the first time that he's been sanctioned, isn't it? And it's been done in quite a piecemeal way over the years. Do you think this all could have been nipped in the bud much, much earlier?
Yes, it should have been dealt with, in 2019. It's all been very much window dressing and symbolic. I mean, in fact, those that people see those as the three trigger points. The fact is that the email about him lying about when he last saw Epstein, I mean, that email had been released in January last year. We just had a bit more detail. Giuffre's book doesn't have actually that much new about Andrew, but I think they didn't really know that at the time. And the Chinese spy thing has been running for a while. It's just another Chinese spy. And I mentioned actually one other person in my book that I suspect of being a spy. But I think the really bad thing was that they knew there was more coming down the line, that the fact that there were these leaked emails meant there would be more leaked emails. They knew there was going to be testimony on Capitol Hill. They knew about Blue Blattified, the Juliet Bryant book. And I think the problem was that they just didn't know what all these things would reveal, and they were trying to catch it. But they're always just a little, too late.
Can we go back to Friday night, Andrew? How did the news unfold for you? At what point did you realise that this was happening?
I think I may have got a call on Friday late afternoon that there might be something happening. And then then the whole thing just exploded from about 7 o'clock. So I didn't have any great headway. I mean, I knew that it wasn't looking good, but we've had bad headlines for Andrew, going on for years now.
Yeah.
So the fact that they did decide to take action did catch me by surprise.
What do you think about, there's so many things about what happened on Friday, but one of it is the fact that he released a statement. So Prince Andrew released a statement via Buckingham Palace. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it was a lost opportunity. I think the statement should have come from King Charles himself, that he'd taken decisive action. He should have actually taken the credit for this. We had the statement from Andrew. It was his own decision to stand down 5 years ago when, of course, it had been forced upon him. Just absolute ridiculous stuff that no one really believed. So they turned what actually could have been a good way of dealing with the problem into a bigger crisis than it had been before.
Now, I imagine a lot of people that are not as versed, in royalty as both you and Emily were as confused. I was a bit confused because, it said that he was losing his titles, but he was being referred to as Prince Andrew. And that to me was a bit confusing because, Prince is a title. They apparently don't want to strip him completely of the titles because they don't want to take up parliamentary time with this. But really, what I've read is that it wouldn't take that much time. So why do you think they're not doing it via the parliament, or will it come to that in the end?
I think they're just putting up excuses, but I do think that exactly 67% of the population wanted to be stripped of his titles. If you're going to strip of titles, do it properly.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take much parliamentary time. William has talked about using letters patent to, for example, strip everyone of their titles. So there are lots and lots of options. And so this is just trying to kind of fudge the issue.
I want to go over what else has emerged over the weekend, and I'm sure you were probably aware of a lot of this already. As you said, you weren't able to publish everything that you wanted to in Entitled. We discovered that Virginia Giuffre was prevented from speaking about the situation for 12 months so as not to overshadow the Queen's Jubilee celebrations, that she received more than the reported $12 million, and then most shockingly, perhaps, an email from Andrew to a palace aide has been leaked in which he says he's asked his police protection officer to look into her, to sort of dig up dirt with the aim of smearing her. Now, that's an incredibly serious development, isn't it? What did you make of that?
Yes, well, in the 1 year grace is not new news. And in fact, it just showed how weak a position he was in, that there wasn't a gagging order for longer. And what slightly surprised me is the book has taken this long to come out, given that she could have been working on it all that time. But there were attempts to smear her. And there are emails of Ghislaine and Epstein and Andrew discussing how they deal with her at a time when he claimed not to have any knowledge of her. I do hope that the police will look into this very seriously.
But you've always said throughout this that actually it's the financial aspect of this which is perhaps the most concerning. And it's something you've been able to uncover a lot of information on, although you've had a huge challenge in doing so over the years, didn't you?
Yes, I think that's much more serious. I think the way he abused his position as the trade envoy between 2001 and 2011 is very worrying. And I'm sure that if there was a parliamentary inquiry and ambassadors had to speak on oath, we would be getting a bit more information. So yes, that's the really serious thing.
The book is out tomorrow, Andrew. Could there be more damning information to come?
Well, I don't know. I haven't read the book, and I think other people have read the book, and it's clearly been quite widely reported, the Jeffrey book. But there is Blue Butterfly by Julian Bright, which I think will have more stuff. But I think the really damaging material will be the release of more Epstein material.
And why now? Why do you think it's coming to a head now? Is it because this is going before Congress?
Yes, I mean, it has built up a head of steam. Since my book got published in August, the press have been slightly more emboldened in terms of their coverage. There clearly has been a big push by the Mail on Sunday to get headlines here. People are more prepared to leak. We clearly have had these developments in the States. I think people are concerned that a lot of this material might not have come out. So I think it's just begun to build its own momentum.
Now, we've heard over the weekend as well reports that William wants to ban Andrew and Sarah from his coronation and all elements of royal life. Is this the case?
I don't know. I mean, this is some way off. But, he is certainly much more ruthless in dealing with Andrew. And of course, as the president, the Duke of Windsor attended neither the wedding of the Queen nor the coronation.
And going back to what we spoke before about Andrew's princely title being removed, would that have any effect on Princess Beatrice and Eugenie and their titles?
No, I understand that their titles come from their birth, and that doesn't change. I think the royal family are keen that they are kept within the royal fold. I suspect that was part of the deal with Andrew. His ambitions have been transferred to his daughters, and he would fall on his sword as long as they were protected. So I think, they will actually, I suspect, be spending their Christmas at Sandringham rather than at Royal Lodge with their parents.
Now, the fact that Prince Andrew is continuing to stay at his 30-bedroom, royal home, Royal Lodge, it's a problem, really. Apparently, he has a very ironclad deal, but could there not be a way out with him losing his titles, that they could finally evict him?
Well, he has this ironclad lease as long as he maintains the terms of that lease. And that's why I think the Times are very keen to get the lease made public so people can see what the terms are, because it's again shrouded in secrecy. The only way I think he can go is to voluntarily go. The optics look terrible for a non-working royal in a 30-room mansion. And he, of course, is an honourable man, and he always puts the country and the monarchy first. So I hope he will do the right thing. Only pressure can be put on him is how his daughters are treated. And maybe if the screws are put onto them in terms of their future, he might do that. Now, clearly, if he is investigated and he goes to prison, that sorts out the Royal Lodge problem. But I think probably he's being encouraged to go to his palace in Abu Dhabi or to take up Swiss nationality.
I was just about to ask you about that. Tell us a little bit more about what that life in exile could look like for him, because you've uncovered quite a lot about his options there.
Yeah, well, he's 65, he's retired, he's got limited interests. Golf, shooting, watching television, occasional horse ride, and much of that he could do anywhere in the world. He doesn't have many friends. He would, of course, want to see his family. If the family are still talking to him, and there are all sorts of rumors about frictions within the family now as a result of this. So I don't think it would be a bad thing to go abroad. And I think it looks terrible to see him riding around Windsor Great Park. So going under the radar somewhere like the Middle East, where he could basically operate without much scrutiny, he could get on with his business activities, could be a pretty good life.
Tell me a little bit more about Switzerland, because obviously Andrew and Sarah had their chalet in Verbier, which again was tied up in various controversies. How and where would he go to Switzerland?
Well, I mean, Sarah at one point was thinking of moving there, and, they both enjoy skiing and have friends there. The girls might well have been educated at Aiglon if there hadn't been scandals at the school. So I think that is quite a strong possibility. I think a stronger possibility is that she goes there and he goes somewhere else, possibly without extradition treaties to the United Kingdom. But they've had this chalet and they have got money. They've just sold the houses in Belgravia. So they've certainly got various options.
And again, going back to the money, Royal Lodge is being funded by someone, we don't know who. He's been able to stay there because he can commit to the upkeep. Where do you think the money is coming from?
Well, he's inherited money. There were trust funds. This is why I think Royal Wales need to be unsealed. But I think the Queen Mother gave him money. I think the Queen probably gave him money. He's made a lot of money over the years off the back of Pitch at the Palace and his time as a special trade envoy. He receives gifts which can be monetized. I suspect he continues to his business activities even now. So I don't think any of us should be under any illusions that he's perfectly in a position to maintain the upkeep of a Royal Lodge. Whether he chooses to do so is another question.
How can the royal family resolve this once and for all? If you were King Charles or the Prince of Wales, what would your strategy be?
Well, my strategy would be to totally distance myself from him, to apologise for his behaviour. There's no contrition from Andrew, but I think there could be from the royal family. And to stick him into exile, like the Duke of Windsor. There must be some levers they can use, if not, as I say, pressure on the daughters, if they can't appeal to Andrew's own honour and desire to not embarrass his family and his country any further. I would certainly strip him of all these titles. That shouldn't be difficult. And I think there must be ways of getting him out of Royal Lodge, even if it's just to put an infestation of mice in there.
Before we let you go, Andrew, what's your prediction for the coming days?
Well, I think there are going to be more revelations. I hope the palace will actually realise the seriousness of the crisis that they're in, and they will take much more decisive action. The press have got the bit between their teeth. I think public opinion is very much in favour that Andrew has to pay the penalty. So I hope that the Met will announce that they are investigating him, and they will carry that through. But who knows? We've had a very busy couple of days, and who knows where it's going to go from here. But I'm afraid it can only get worse for the royal family.
Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can go and either have a power nap or lots of strong coffee as you continue in your endeavours. You've done so much to bring this to public attention, and we're very grateful to have your insight today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
And that's everything from us today. Thank you so much to you and to Andrew for joining us. We'll be back soon with another packed episode.
In the meantime, get more from Hello with our entertainment podcast, The Daily Lowdown, available on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Bye.